Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and The Dead Scare, issue number 1 and 2, and another short story in the back, The Awakening. This was a complexly good book that still has some flaws, but there are really good reasons for that. I'm going to get into all that after I butcher the hell out of all the names of the people who are involved in this book. It's actually not a lot of people, but yeah, there's some names I'm not familiar with. Anyway, so we got, this book is written by Jeff Woodruff, illustrated by, here we go, Katerina Koshaleva, cover art by Juan Gedden, cover variant by Jordan Monsell, cover layout by Robson Anderson, and here we go again, Katerina Koshaleva. I think I did her name right. I hope. She's probably going to call me up and be like, you idiot! Anyway, this was a special kind of weird, this book. Now, listen, let's get this, first let's talk about the story itself. So basically, you have to read the solicits. You need to read the solicits before you get into this book, because unfortunately the book itself does not explain it. So this is back in 1918 when the Spanish influenza virus disease, whatever, comes across the United States, and like 50 to 100 million people are killed. This is also the time when Babe Ruth is, awesome, but he's not Big Fat Babe, and he's not, the greatest ever Babe, legendary Babe Ruth. He's just getting his up and comings. His rookie card just came out not too long ago. Anyway, and on top of that, daylight savings time starts for the first time around World War I to help us to win the the war movement. Anyway, so yeah, that's a lot. And this guy Jeff Woodruff, who made this comic book, terrified of the freaking living dead, the walking dead, the walkers, the shamblers, you know what I'm saying? And just, yeah. Basically what happens is people die from the influenza. Certain of them have this bluish hue to their skin, a hint of blue hue, I guess, to their skin. Some of them come back, just the ones who died within the last hour. When daylight savings time happens, Babe Ruth comes. There's a lot of religious stuff, and yeah, it feels like a jumbled mess. Make no mistake, this is still a good comic book, and I can still recommend it for multiple reasons. I'm going to get into all those. This is a story that is detailed and deep, and it pulls from a lot of history. Here's the deal. When you've pulled a lot from history, and make no mistake, there is zero doubt whatsoever. I had to read the end to understand what was happening in the story, because a lot of the story, most of the story, the bulk of the story, 95% plus perhaps of the story is based on the art. And you've got an amazing artist in here. Holy crap. I should probably show you some of the pages inside besides what you're actually seeing. There's some clockwork stuff involved here. There's a really great short part here where this guy who died and comes back and apparently has to eat flesh in order to get his brain back or something like that. Anyway, he makes a clockwork arm for himself. I don't know why he made a clockwork arm for himself. He lost 2 fingers, so he makes an entire clockwork arm with this big, shink thing over here. Like, what? Anyway, he and his parents, all German descent, they make this, or they make a bunch of clockwork stuff, and the guy's like, oh, my poor son who died, but came back or didn't come back. I think they knew he died. I'm not sure. Whatever. Maybe they thought he was going to... Whatever. Anyway, so yeah, the son's laying there, and he may or may not be dead, and I'm not sure if they know that he's dead or that he's not dead or what the hell's going on, because it doesn't explain it in the story. You just rely on the art way too much. Anyway, there's this beautiful part where they talk about... you will meet Charon on the river Styx, and you will create a clockwork doppelganger, and he will be happy with this doppelganger, and he will go fishing and do all these wonderful things, and you'll be free to go do whatever you want to do. And it's like, damn it, that was like one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. The problem is that it was literally just that, and then the parents are murdered. I think all the parents are dead now. Some people are dead. I can't tell. because it relies too heavily on the artwork. Look, when somebody puts this much research into a book, you'd figure you would assume that nobody else has done that research. And you're kind of left to explain this. And that's where the narration boxes come in. This is the first time that Mr. Woodruff, I believe, has done any comic book work. That's important to keep in mind, which means this is the first work that he's done, which means this is the beginning of what could be a masterful career in writing comic books. I could be holding in my hand one of the first digital prints of the next Jeff Lemire, because this is one hell of a story that he has no interest whatsoever in rushing. And you could tell by the short story in the back that he's already got plans for what happens after all of this, like the 1 year later stuff. So he could literally just go through the whole situation. And wow, this could really be an epic story. But there are a couple of things that have to be understood first about comic books. You can't assume that the reader is going to know what you're talking about. You have to have test audiences. And I believe I'm one of those test audiences. With that being the case, you could actually be one of those test audiences too. You could get this comic book on Comixology for only 99 cents. In fact, you know what? Let's make it easy. In the description below, I'm going to send you a link. I'm going to have a link for you to actually check this out, so you can go and purchase the book. Because yeah, there's a lot here, and this artist can't be denied. You cannot put anything past this artist. Holy crap, I can't wait to see more from this artist. That's facts. The letters in here, I'm okay with the letters. I'm cool with the letters. The boxes, the layout for the letters. There are parts, especially in the beginning, when the people first start talking, you have to get used to the way this works. You really do follow the this, then this, then this. You follow the left to right format, and you follow the top to down format. Good. But the square boxes for the words, like, these are actually people speaking. So the narration boxes should be square. Speaking boxes should not be square. They should be rounded heavily. You know, oblong, ovals, not this. There are no thought bubbles. And also this, I guess, when somebody's yelling, they do it like this, which is cool, which is I like that. I'm down with that. It almost seems melodic. You have to switch up the text boxes, the narration. You have to first add text boxes, and maybe a thought box or so, you know, a thought bubble or so wouldn't hurt, right? But everything can't be speaking. Everything can't be speaking. You have to have some narration there. You have to be able to put a setting. You have to be able to explain what's going on in the background. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. It's simply not, especially with a story so complex as this. The problem is that a story as complex as this becomes infinitely more complex when you have to get to the end of the book and read the author's intent. I mean, dude, the stuff in here, the supernatural, the clockwork, the actual historical references. I mean, there's a lot happening in this book. And make no mistake, the idea that it's only red, like blood, that's being shown in color here, perfect, perfect, perfect. I'm so down, so down. That being said, yeah, the author gives a whole, the writer gives an entire, well, I don't know, a whole page basically of just what's going on, what's happening in the book. Since I didn't read the solicits, I was able to actually figure out everything that was in the book, but the end of the book, that page that I just showed you, is what confirmed that I wasn't just making all this stuff up. And make no mistake, while I did figure out what was going on in the book, I wasn't sure I was right. There was zero confirmation until I got to the end of the book, because I didn't read the solicits first. I actually couldn't even find the email where the guy, I think the guy emailed me for, you know, maybe, but like he got my, you know, the address to send the stuff to. Yeah, I really couldn't find the stuff because I wanted to actually get in contact with him and be like, hey, Jeff, hey, this and that. And Couldn't do it. I looked up Dead Scare and everything, and I couldn't find it. Anyway, look, for a first comic book, this is about as good as you could hope for without, it seems to me, a whole lot of experience in the comic book world. There's a solid binding on here also, I have to point out. I'm digging on that. Well, not a solid one. It's a good binding. What do you call this? Advertisement for these guys in the back. Kablam! They'll actually do your comic book for you. Cool. That's good information too. Hopefully they got a nice discount by putting that on the back. Anyway, the book was good. The story was great. We needed to fix the word boxes and round them out because they look like narration boxes. It's not hard to confuse them with narration boxes because there was no narration in the story. So no narration boxes, no thought bubbles, which whatever, maybe people just don't choose to write like that, but you need narration boxes. You need that. You got to have that. And there was zero in the story. There were things that happened in the story that I was wondering what the heck is going on. This kid goes to try and get his sister back from this whorehouse, and they're like, yeah, the world may be ending, but hey, we're still making money, so if you want your sister, you got to pay for her. Like, what is going on here? Maybe this is historically accurate stuff. I'm sure it is, in fact, knowing the amount of effort this guy put into the book. But give us something more. Like, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand what's going on with most of what's happening here. It's the weirdest freaking thing possible. Anyway, yeah, I really did like the story. I wish I could have understood the story while I was reading the story. Just a few narration boxes would have fixed this enough so that I don't have to say, I think this is what's happening. Okay, I've mulled over this enough. Let's move on with the story. It's slowed down the story, and it's good to slow down a story that has this much action in it. That's really important. But some things happen. Like, what was the purpose of the bird that curses in this? I didn't understand. Maybe it was just meant as a distraction for what was happening in the other room. This is, I don't know, could you call this an intellectual horror? Is that a possibility? I don't know, because honestly, I'm looking at it, but at the same time, there was still more to this book. There was, like I said, the clockwork sci-fi action. There was the supernatural horror that, this emaciated centaur thing shows up. This part satyr, part centaur shows up and starts preaching prophecy to these guys. And it's like, this is weird stuff right here, man. And like somebody's actually reading out of a Bible passage where I'm like, I think it's a Bible passage. Wow, dude, this was a wild story. And I'm on the very cusp of loving it. But I wanted to understand what was happening as I was reading it, as opposed to looking at this. Like, when they start doing the daylight savings time part in here, I'm like, are they doing daylight savings time? Because I can't tell exactly. They didn't lead into it. They didn't explain it. It's just, you got to kill the Germans. I guess that meant like I'm thinking now, that must have meant from the war effort. Because they just talked about how there were some Germans over here and the one guy was shot. Probably because, the guy with the clockwork arm, probably because he is German and people are just racist. And then immediately goes into, anyway, here's a guy who'll talk to you about it. Babe Ruth. And Babe Ruth walks up with selling war bonds, which, cool, we got a Captain America moment. And then they go to start moving this gigantic clock and everybody starts setting their clock. But they don't explain that's what they're doing. I didn't read the solicits. And in the beginning of the book, no solicit. Yeah. The book needs some work. But once that work is addressed, you have got an amazing, possibly best-selling comic book, like indie comic of the year potential in here. Because they got the right artist. Fix a couple little things in this, man, and you're talking about, wow. And I mean, for, getting a cover artist who could pull off something like this looks like one of the most professional books that you're going to see on the freaking comic book stands today, with still that great vintage feel. There is so much right about the comic book that the parts that are wrong are glaring, and it's to my understanding of this, my takeaway, it's purely from inexperience. But inexperience is something that you could fix. It's hard to give someone creativity. It's hard to give somebody a lot of, like imagination and the things that you need to write a good comic book. This guy, Jeff Woodruff, has this in spades. The only thing that he needs is the one thing that you can learn. That's experience, man. I can't wait to see this being one of the top sellers. I can't wait to see Image Comics and, people like IDW perhaps. Hey, IDW, they're missing the... Oh, no, it is Image. Image missing the Walking Dead money that was coming in, right? I'm saying. I could see them going crazy, gaga over this, right? Anyway, guys, fantastic stuff, and I really do hope to see more, especially once these little nuances are fixed. And I'm out. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.